I actually agree with.
This was showing before. And I just now noticed something. You know, at the top of that video, sfbmod stops by to straighten us out. I never had that intention, and I'm kind of offended by that. Just noticed it.
Yeah.
Top of the, that's Speed's thing, I guess.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, I was muted. Let me start again. Let me start over again. Oh, damn. Anyway, okay, let's go back to this. So I don't know if you heard this part.
This was showing before. And I just now noticed something. You know, at the top of that video, sfbmod stops by to straighten us out. I never had that intention, and I'm kind of offended by that. Just noticed it.
Yeah.
Top of the, that's Speed's thing, I guess.
Yeah, it is Speed's thing to make icons and little comments in my titles that are meant to take this to a humorous tongue-in-cheek level. I'm hoping you guys can hear me now. Let me know if you can. I had myself muted, for Christ's sake. Anyway, I never mean to offend you guys. You just have to understand that I have a sense of humor, and I'm going to say things that are going to try to take this a level above to look at the hilarity of this conversation that we often have between these opposing camps. So don't take it too seriously. You know, I'm not, I mean, I'm laughing at myself as much as I'm laughing at you guys, though I prefer laughing at you guys, to tell you the truth. Anyway, let's see. Boys and girls, it's my birthday today. I'm 25,456 days old. That's my daily birthday. That's not my yearly birthday. Anyway, so that equates to 69 and a lot of change. So I'm almost about ready to turn 70. After my conversation with SFB yesterday, I decided to look into grocery bagging as a career. I'm just reconsidering my choices in life, I guess, after yesterday. So let's see. I don't know if I said this already, but SFB Mod reminds me of my brothers in that he is brilliant and very, very creative. And his mind goes every which way but loose. And unfortunately, you have to combine that with some actual science and learning, and like textbook learning first, before you can actually focus on something and say something valid. Now, there's nothing wrong with getting into a think tank and saying, hey, you know, it could be this, could be bioelectric effects, it could be, you know, whatever. But anyway, we'll get into a little bit of that. So let's see here if I can get this damn thing to scroll up. It never does. Why don't you scroll up? Okay, scrolling up to the beginning here. Oneness, Unitarian, heretic, moron. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the hell he is. Anyway, I was kind of done with the conversation very, very early on, and I keep doing that. I keep bailing on my own conversations. I mean, I want to have conversations with these guys, but frequently I just don't know what the hell to do with them. So I think it started about right here.
Oh, your father creates the sperms. All of that has causality, but something that preceded all of that. So yeah, they want to focus on just the obvious parts of it.
Wow. I have some interference here.
Say again?
Now it's gone. I
Oh
had
my
some
goodness.
crazy noise.
The Planck talk about Einstein.
Well, okay, so you're talking about, where all life came from. I'm talking about where you came from when you were a zygote, from being a zygote to what you are now. You don't believe there was supernatural intervention, do you?
Okay, Speed made the same question to me. And of course, the development is already pre-programmed, so that is a non-issue. The question...
The fighting is.
Okay, so this is the question I always ask, and now this is the conversation I tried to have with Anthony Maurice over on Smokey's channel, where I was talking about the seed, and I was talking about the seed turning into an oak tree. And I know I hope I'm not beating a dead horse with you guys here. Oh, that was Smokey Saint. Hi, Smokey Saint. Anyway, I tried to have this conversation where I am bracketing how the seed came to be. I mean, when you do science, you'll notice that creationists often talk about historical science and observational science. Well, that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm giving them that. I'm talking to them about what we can observe today. We have a seed, it turns into an oak tree. We don't give a shit where the seed came from, where the DNA came from, where the structure of that seed came from. What I'm trying to get them to admit is that there are no supernatural interventions to go from a seed or a zygote to a fully formed organism. And that is lost on them for some reason, because you have to start somewhere when you're discussing these things. And then you can look, okay, after you have bracketed this, then you can look at the historical science. But I'll get a little more into that. I have a drawing and I have some information, and in my description I refer to a book on information and biology by Roederer. And Roederer is one of the people whose papers I think John Maddox at least suggested when he pointed out very early in his career on YouTube to this Royal Society episode or journal that had 15 or 16 articles in it on information and biology. And that's kind of what we're talking about. So, yeah, you can join after. Let me do my piece, Nestle, and then I'll have you in. Okay. And let's see, but it's going to take a little while because I've got a lot of things to go through here. Let's see. So where was I? So I'm trying to establish, what we can do with science, how science works, how methodological naturalism works. We have things that we can observe today, and we can do an experiment, and we can figure out exactly how the biology works in order to turn a zygote into a human being. We understand a whole lot about that embryology, and there's nothing supernatural, nothing spooky going on there. It is just chemicals bumping into other chemicals. And we can do many tests, and we can do repeatable tests, okay? And that's the important part. When you get to that, then you can start thinking about, okay, now that I know what happens today, I can predict what is going to happen tomorrow. And that's a really important thing about science that we're after, is we're trying to predict what is going to happen tomorrow, okay? Now, it becomes important in looking at what's going to happen, not just tomorrow, but in 100 years or 1,000 years or 1,000,000 years, or even 1,000,000,000 years. And for that, we employ the science of evolutionary biology. And what we do is we go back one step. Let's go back to yesterday. Let's ask ourselves if your car is in the garage and you haven't used your car today, how did your car get in the garage? And you can make an inference based on what you know, basically, from your history of, of checking this thing out. You can go back one day and you can say, oh yeah, my car's in the garage because I parked it there last night. So you go up into your garage and you look and your car is there. And you're like, okay, you made a prediction. That is a scientific prediction. Your car will be there. Sometimes your car is not because somebody stole it, but that doesn't happen too often. So anyway, and if your car is stolen, you can draw on you can infer as to, why your car is not in the garage when you expect it to be there. So, okay. So that's the point, is to get them started with that. But then, creationists, as soon as you start talking about observational science, like they fucking want you to, they bring up the entire history about, oh, how did the genome get there? Well, the genome is information. There is information in the genome and it got there somehow. Okay. We can bracket how it got there, look at all the science of what's going on today, and then we can start trying to tear apart how it got there. And that's how the discussion should have proceeded. But it didn't. Let's see. Where do we go next?
Sorry.
For what?
Yeah, I went to how it was more of an origins question than just how
No, it ain't.
multi-cell organisms versus single-cell organisms procreate.
Yeah, of course, the seed has already all the programming stored in its genome in order to develop. So this is a non-issue. Of course, God is not intervening in the development of an organism. That is a moot question. The question.
Okay, I'm glad that Otangelo weighed in and actually committed to something for a change. And I think he has before, and he is being a little more honest than SFB was with me in that conversation yesterday. And that's why everything kind of went to hell. So if you'll just give me a minute here, I have to do an invite. Oh, my goodness. I'm going to try to do something here. Okay. Just sent out invite to Nestleg and Otangelo. And I don't want it to get too crowded here because there are things to do here. So anyway, let's see where it goes here.
Is how life diversified, and that's different from development.
Right? Or how it originated, like I was saying.
Yeah, and of course the question is as well, how did the development evolve or originate?
Right.
And that is, of course, another question, and it is something which science has no clear answer to respond to that.
Science has a hell of a lot of answers to that question, and that is the conversation that you have after you at least agree to this one thing, that there is no supernatural intervention in turning a zygote into a human being. Let's see if there's any more here.
Right, yeah, because we're with the zygote question he was asking, that's fairly well understood. We can watch it. We've mapped, like you said, we've mapped the pre-existing, pre-codified information within a human cell, which is the same when you're first fertilized. You've got all the DNA code you'll ever need for the rest of your life,
So if he had said that in our discussion, things would have gotten a hell of a lot better, and I wouldn't have given up on him right away.
And so we understand that fairly well. We're still learning it, of course. But the question that we don't ask enough is how did that start?
Yes, that is the relevant question, actually. And it's
oh my God, we don't ask that question enough. What do you think the 10,000 papers we have on abiogenesis from the last 10 years are about? And what are the other hundreds of thousand papers that we have on evolution? We are asking that question and we are looking at it, but we're doing it a little more carefully than a creationist might do it. We're going back one day at a time. And that is the point that they don't seem to ever give us. And it drives me crazy. I'm not watching chat, guys. I'm sorry. God, I'm way behind on chat. Anyway, let's see where else it goes here.
Starts with abiogenesis, how the information got there to make the first living organism or organisms, and then if evolution explains the biodiversification entirely, if the tree of life is true.
Now, here's the point. Okay, Otangelo just brought up abiogenesis, the beginning of multicellular organisms. He brought up the tree of life. He's brought up too many subjects. You don't do science that way. You agree on the zygote to the organism, and then you go back a day and back another day and back another day. And you do it in small steps. I mean, if you want to talk about how humans evolved, okay, that would be the easy stuff. That would be the 1+1 that CRISPR-Cas9 mentioned in his talk with John Maddox a few weeks back. That's the easy stuff. Then you go back another step. Then you start looking at, well, let's look at how, let's look at endosymbiosis, maybe how eukaryotes started. That's leaping way back like 700 million years. And then we can go back another step, but we've got to pick something to fucking talk about. We can't be talking about everything all at once. You creationists are extremely unfair in your dialogue with people that follow evolutionary theory, and you keep doing it. And then you complain that we never explain anything. Well, how in the fuck can we explain something when you keep running back and forth across a 4.2 billion year long football field with the goalposts? And God, how many times do I have to say this? I'm trying to teach you guys how the science is done. Oh my God, really? You know, I always thought, you know, Venus, if there had been an advanced civilization of sentient beings on Venus, say 500 million years ago, and then the whole thing turned into a greenhouse gas and melted everything, we wouldn't have any idea that this civilization even existed, unless we find some remnant of a satellite that they launched or something, but they may have died off before then. So anyway, you're gonna have to link me something on that. I need to specify, let's see, creationist and yak pudding. It's disingenuous at this point. Okay, yak pudding is basically, we can get into that. It's an abiogenesis talk, and it has to do with microstates, and it's kind of a long talk, Smokey. So, okay, so where are we at here? Let me leap ahead maybe to 559 and see what we got.
Either of us were zygotes versus what was before that. You know, there's all kinds of relativity perspectives here. And so there's a good argument, or good, you know, at least a debate on who you are. You know, in fact, I follow my last boss's Neuralink project, where we're hoping to actually see where does the thought process, where does the quote unquote soul, does it actually exist in a bioelectrical, mechanical, chemical arrangement only within our brains, or is it somewhere outside of our bodies entirely? So all of those kind of questions are up in the air, and that's what we use science for, to finally understand. And so if our soul, if our being, our consciousness, whatever you want to call it, does not exist in our bodies now, much less as a zygote, where do you, quote unquote, come from? Where do you start?
So you're telling me that you don't believe in the science of embryology? We don't have enough evidence because of the mind?
No. In fact, there's wonderful.
Yeah, and this is where SFB just went way the fuck off the rails and started conjecturing about our soul being involved in development of zygote to organism, and that there's absolutely no evidence that there's anything supernatural going on in that development. So he brought that in, and I sort of gave up on him on that at that point. But then that is, you know, he's a brilliant man doing creative work. When I was trying to get him to settle down and talk about what we do know and, you know, the science that we do have. So things kind of went off the rails there. And I wasn't able to contain him, I guess. If I had been more aware of what was going on with him, maybe I would have done a better job.
Examples of how the pre-codified, pre-engineered information function sets within DNA for all genomes, you know, are pre-programmed, so to say, pre-codified, to be able to change during the embryology, as well as, you know, even later in life, you know, older age. There's all kinds of pre-programmed changes, and we can watch that. We can see, quote unquote, how you're knitted in the womb, as the Bible puts it. We can watch that now, not just physically on the outside, but also internally, information-wise, or what's programmatically wise.
Yeah, and that was him sort of conceding my point, you know, that, yeah, we can watch it, and it is science. So it's there. And but I had given up on them already. My fault.
But still, the question, it's not so much of those kind of details, the physical details. What originated, or what preceded, what created, what started the first single cell's development cycle? There's still a process, a beginning, an origin, just as there is for multi-cells.
Yeah,
The
but that's not observable, in the present time. What we're talking about is extant species, extant organisms like bacteria,
right,
like a mouse, like humans, like a fruit fly.
Right.
You can see a pattern.
Right. Which I'm sorry. I'm trying not to interrupt. Oh, right. So which is it's still as relevant as trying to find out the origin for the non-multi cell. So again, you don't start as a zygote. Your mother creates the eggs, and then
well, there is a series of events that has to be explained. That is the origin of life, the diversification into 3 domains of life, the transition from unicellular to multicellular lives, and so forth. All this is what actually has to be explained. And in my understanding, evolutionary biology has no compelling explanation whatsoever in regards of any of those huge development steps.
We have reams, that would probably stacked up reach the moon at this point on how all that works, Otangelo. But you never get down to the point where you want to listen to us. It just kills me. Anyway, this one guy mentioned the Killer song. What the hell's the name of that song? That is, All These Things. I mentioned that the other day. I used to, at the end of my drug and alcohol using career about 14 years ago, I used to put that song on the radio or on the stereo, and I would crank it up to maximum volume, and then I would have a nervous breakdown, basically. And I think it led to my sobriety at some point. Very, very poignant song for me. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, we have a mountain of evidence. It's just, you never let us get there. And how are we going to present you all of evolutionary biology in a debate when you ask the question? Otangelo keeps saying, we have to explain this, we have to explain that. Well, that is the science of evolutionary biology. And have we explained everything? Fuck no. Not yet. What would we do? We'd all go home and be depressed if we explained it all. This isn't there yet. Let's see what else we got. We got 10:01. We got let's see, there's some stuff at 13, I think, that I highlighted.
I actually agree with the skepticism in regards of this claim, Joel. Mm-hmm. I have never heard about it, and I can hardly imagine that retrotransposons have some kind of ability of decision making. I don't know if you have solid evidence to back up that observation or that claim.
Later in this conversation, we did share an old 6-year-old article.
Okay, here's the point where Otangelo pushed back on SFB and said, wait a minute, we don't have any evidence of anything spooky happening today. And I was happy to see that, Otangelo. Thank you. And now he's going to mention his article about retrotransposons.
That I was referring to with them. Because again, I don't have the recent stuff in an actual documented form, unfortunately, yet. And I need to work on that, I guess. But there's all kinds of old stuff, even though that talks about how, that one article, for example, it described it as a civil war, quote unquote. There's a series of decisions that these transposons and other things as well, not just the transposons, that are somehow knowing.
I just want to comment on Smokey Saint's comment. Yes, Yak extremists seem to suffer from poor thinking in general. And it's because they have latched upon some rigid framework of a reductionist story, and they keep trying to fit everything to that story. And I'm guessing it would create theological problems as well as creating problems in the field of science. And it's none of it is necessary. Where is Otangelo? Otangelo's not around today. I did send you a link, Otangelo, and I sent another link here for molecular or universe where you can come in. Anyone else? Let's see. Let's run with this.
Which enzymes, which areas of the DNA to quote, it used to be called jumping genes. We used to think it was a random accident that DNA would just randomly break and then shift around and cause problems. Well, no, it turns out now it's not random. It's doing it on purpose. It's a pre-organized data archival instruction system function.
Okay. Oh, well, let's see.
And what is the purpose of this system?
It's pulling certain archived code, pre-existing code from what used to be called inactive gene structures of the chromosomes and whatnot, and moving it to other areas to do other specific functions. It's dynamic programming. It's doing things non-randomly, and that requires decision making. That requires cognition.
Okay,
well, if you say cognition,
no, it doesn't. And the article he pulled up had nothing to do with what he was talking about. We linked the article in yesterday's video, which is linked in this video. So anyway, the transposons jump, and they jump to certain spots based on a signal that they get from the DNA, and frequently they will affect some regulation of a gene, and more often, like 99% of the time, they cause, well, I guess 90% of the time nothing happens. 9% of the time you get cancer and die. And 1% of the time there will be some actual change that will have an effect on the biochemistry, a neutral mutation that will later on become something like an orphan gene or a new gene function. And that is something that there's a lot of work being done on, and we know quite a bit about it. We try to actually be honest. Speed and SFB is basically one crooked and one crazy badly. Yeah, I know. He is kind of a cultist, so and that was sort of the problem I had with him throughout the entire talk. I kept bringing up things that just didn't go anywhere and didn't make any sense. So anyway, I'm not sure what else I can do here. I thought maybe you were going to jump in. Nestleg, I sent you a link, but I haven't seen you pop up, so I'm not sure what to do. But I think I may have been done with this. Let me see here. Show my latest comment. Let's see, where is it? Where's your latest comment? Tendency to double down instead of walking back these claims is evidence that he never worked at the bleeding edge of science. Yes. The thing about codecs and compression in DNA and histones, he just wasn't making any sense. There is no compression of that signal. If we had compression of the DNA signal, that means that parts of the DNA would mutate and degrade. I guess that happens a little bit, in somatic lines of cells, where there's a little bit of mutation, a little bit of loss of signal, and the information still gets through. But it's not exactly compression, and none of it made any sense. Intellectual degenerate accused me of Mormonism. Oh, so you had to talk with him too. Anyway, yeah, he got on my radar because when I first listened to him, it's like, okay, this guy claims to be an inorganic chemist, and he made a bunch of other claims, and I thought, that he had something to offer, to the discussion, but I'm done with him. Leo Phileas has got to talk to him about physics, and we want to set that up. And I apologize, SFB. Like I say, you're a brilliant, creative person. You just got to contain it a little bit. Let's see. We're so focused on the age of the earth, those moron heretics run rampant. Yeah, the age of the earth thing really fucking confused me. I mean, I couldn't even nail them down on saying the earth is X number of years old. And I mean, how old you are. So just extend that back and just admit, that the earth is either 4.2 billion years old or whatever you think it is. And he wouldn't even, he would not land on a single point. He was like stabbing marbles with a fork, it just didn't work out. I don't know. Let's see. I think I do have some other links. 1447 we're at. Let me see what else I got here. There were some other points.
And also DNA only has 4 different types of chemicals, the 4 nucleic acids. So what keeps this transposon from going to some other wrong section of the DNA? If it's just a strictly raw chemical reaction that's seeking out specific chemical DNA peptide.
There's a well-known chemical reaction. If you want to call a chemical reaction hydrogen bonding, but basically there is a signal that's found. And the transposon will insert more often at a certain spot, like lines and signs. They find that they will insert at a particular location, and this is based on the insertion process, and it is it's becoming a fairly well documented field. We know why that happens, and it's causal, and it has nothing to do with intelligence or cognition. And he wants to go there, and it doesn't work to go there.
Chain sections. There's got to be plenty of sections that are identical to another section. If you don't look at it in a certain long-term instruction set, so it can make all kinds of errors. And that was one of the original assumptions, especially that 2014 article that I shared in their channel, that it was just a bunch of mistakes, and that there's other processes that would try to correct these mistakes. That civil war going on, as they call it. And so since then, though, I've read where it doesn't make mistakes. It's all doing it correctly.
No, they're mistakes. Transposons are mistakes. They're viruses that invaded our genome, and they don't always kill us. Sometimes they actually create a beneficial result, a beneficial mutation. I mean, that happens. It happens rarely, but it happens. Standing for Truth loves to talk about his fucking transposons, and he's always pointing out like the 4 or 5 instances where we know that transposons have created a beneficial mutation. One of them was in placental development, but that's it. There are tens of thousands, if not more, of these transposon insertions and duplications, and most of them are, I don't want to use the word junk DNA. Most of them don't do anything. They don't have any effect. It's a virus. We know it's a virus. It got into our genome, and it's duplicating itself. Let's see what I think. There's one more link, and then we'll go on to something else.
Our artificial AI, artificial intelligence, can become super intelligent, as they call it, the super AI, and then basically take over the world. The Skynet thing, and there's all kinds of conversations with that. So you can program cognition. You can, at least what I would describe it as mimicking it. And so that's
cognition is completely stochastic. I mean, there is no how can I say that is something which is completely independent from a pre-programming or so. That is the hard problem in science, which is conscience, which is intelligence, which is mind, which is
intuition, right?
Intuition, exactly. So I could not imagine that they will ever be able to break that barrier and be able to program a device to become conscient and make decisions as we do.
Right, but that's the effort, though. So, and we're actually pretty close. We've got the ideas, the science is available, and so that's kind of one of the, especially for the I don't know what you call them exactly, the super AI, the people that want AI to take over the world. There are people out there that are like that. So that's what they want to be able to do, and whether or not they it has muddled the waters, so to say. It's blurring the lines of what we would like to assume is some sort of spiritual aspect for cognition versus to be able to just, the way I describe it is mimicking it. You can measure, you can create these heuristic sets, these decision layers, and you can make it seem like it'll make it. There's a point where we will not be able to tell the difference if we're talking to a human versus a non-human, essentially. So what do we see in DNA? Do we see a spiritual element where God or something, I don't know if God sends angels? I mean, there's all kinds of speculation of how he helps these things regulate within DNA versus are they mimicking other decision layer sets?
Well, this is precisely the point where I think that Speed and the ones that were chatting with you were skeptic. And to be honest with you, I am a skeptic as well in regards of that proposal and hypothesis.
Well, yeah, and that's fine. That's the whole joy of science. But the question, oh,
it is distorting again. Wow.
Anyway, I haven't got much further in analysis of this, and this is getting kind of long and boring. So basically, I don't know. I don't know where to go with sfbmod. Leo, if you're out there somewhere watching this thing, let's respond to the emails. Leo doesn't have a phone anymore. He threw it at the wall. Something I've always wanted to do with my iPhone daily. So anyway, let's communicate by email and set it up, and we'll see what we can do. There isn't much more on this. There's a whole lot more here when John Maddox gets into the room, I think. Oh, P. Mars is there. I thought Maddox got in. Yeah, Maddox got in about right here. I have to review all that stuff. I love talking about the Maddox. Anyway, I think I can wrap this up. Well, no, I promised something else. So let me see how this goes. It is not going to go well, I don't think, because I'm not ready. I think I'll do another video on this, on Roederer and information, and he explains biological information very simply, and we could have some talks on that. Maybe I will put something together for a little bit later, but I think that's about all I got for the weather report. We got a little controversy going between Smokey Saint and P. Mars. And I don't know where I land on that stuff. Anyway, good to see you all. I'm going to end this and hopefully do a little more on billiard balls and information. And the book I linked in the description has a great deal on biological information. And he explains, Roederer has a definition of pragmatic information, and he combines it and relates it to Shannon entropy or Shannon information, and Kolmogorov complexity and things of that nature, which I would like to get into later. And he explains it with billiard balls. So we'll try that a little bit later. I'm going to end this. See you guys soon, I hope. Oh, I'm hoping to get Otangelo on for a discussion. Yesterday, he said that he asked to come in, and I ignored him. I didn't ignore you, Otangelo. You made a very small little request, and I was dealing with Nestleg at the time, and I missed you. So I did not. I'm not sure if I would have brought you in because things were confusing enough, without adding another element to it. But I truly didn't see your request, so I apologize. I don't watch chat all that well. Like today, I missed most of the chat that you guys have done here. So, okay. Anyway, there is going to be an icon for this show that NathanArt just delivered, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that up. See you guys later.